We also have people from the Oaks as well.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, so we
do. Sorry, I didn't hear that bit.
Yeah, we do the Madaban and then the Oaks, and then.
Yeah. Sorry, my internet connection's unstable, so I've taken video off now.
All right. Okay, no problem. All right, we'll just wait for YouTube to start. Okay, we are now live on YouTube. So, I'm going to minimize that, otherwise it'll distract me seeing myself twice. Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March meeting of the Liss Parish Council Planning Committee. I know we have a number of members of the public attending this evening or watching via YouTube, and thank you all for your submissions that you've sent in. They have been circulated around the committee. And so because, excuse me, because I know we have members of the public attending, we will change the order around slightly. And once we've got through the 5 things that we need to get to before we get to the applications, when we get to the applications, we will take the Madaban application first, and then the Oaks application second. And then for those members of the public present, if you wish to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, you are of course more than welcome to. But equally, if you wish to leave at that point, then that is fine too. And we thank you for attending. So we begin with apologies, please, Lizzie.
Apologies from Councillor Gerard and Councillor Hargreaves.
Thank you. We now have to do the declarations of interest, which we have a nationally set form of words to do for planning committee. And so I will start, and then I will go around each council in turn and ask them for their declarations. So I am Councillor Keith Budden. I'm chairman of Liss Parish Council Planning Committee. I confirm that I am present. I have read the agenda. I've read any supplementary papers, any deputations received, and I've no interest to declare in any of the items on tonight's agenda. Claire, please.
I'm Councillor Williams, a member of Liss Parish Council Planning Committee. I confirm that I've read the agenda and all of the deputations and have no interest to declare on any of the items.
Thank you. Nick, please.
I'm Councillor Nick Wilson, member of the Planning Committee. I confirm I have read the agenda and all the relevant papers, and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. Howard, oh, it's on mute.
Right.
Howard, please.
Yeah, I am Howard Lindsley. I am a member of Liss Parish Council Planning Committee. I have read the agenda and the attached comments, including those from members of the public. I have nothing to declare with the exception of 9A Vincent Road, where I have a non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Sheila, please. You're on mute, Sheila.
I'm Sheila Baldwin, a member of Liss Parish Council Planning Committee. I confirm that I've read the agenda and I have no interest to declare in any of the applications up tonight.
Thank you. And Sue, please.
I'm Sue Halstead. I'm a co-opted member of Liss Parish Council Planning Committee. I confirm that I have read the agenda and all the details, and I have read all the deputations received. I am going to declare a non-pecuniary interest in the Oaks, since the applicant is related to my neighbour. And as a co-opted member of the committee, I will not be voting on any of the applications.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, everyone. So now we come to approval of the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of February 2021. Can I have someone to propose the minutes, please? Howard and Claire to second. Everyone happy with the minutes as they are? Yeah. Oh, Nick, do you have something? Or are you saying you're happy? Right, then you're happy. Okay, that's fine. So, any matters arising from the minutes of the 10th of February?
Oh, can I just... Yeah, can I ask something?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Just that Lizzie sent round a thing saying that we should comment on the camping and glamping town, but I see it's not on the agenda tonight.
No, because the closing date has passed, so we've submitted the responses that we have.
Okay.
And so we wait and see what feedback we receive on that.
Chair, did members of the committee receive a copy of that? I can't remember seeing it.
I'll submit the copy of the comments I submitted.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so we move on then to the applications received, and as I say, I think we'll take the Madaban Tandoori restaurant one first. What's that?
Can I share my screen, Chair?
Oh yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Should be able to now, Lizzie. So as you know, we've had a number of deputations on this application. Just for a little bit of background, the site is car parking space currently, or car parking spaces currently beside the Madaban, which are also used for delivery vehicles, although the applicant in their application says that the parking spaces are disused, although my personal observation would be that that is not the case, and also we do have photographs submitted by residents that show that it's not the case on the South Downs planning website. So it may be those vehicles are parking there without permission, but that's not the same thing as it being out of use. And so the application is to construct 2 dwellings and associated hard and soft landscaping. I think the only other comment I would make on that is it's distinctly scarce on soft landscaping because there isn't really any garden to speak of with the properties. And as you will see from the drawing which Assistant Clark's now put on the screen, the roof height will be the same as, or roughly the same as, the Madaban next door, but because of the way the road actually slopes down there, the buildings will actually be taller than the Madaban building. It's just the roof line will appear the same, and by doing that, they've managed to get the building to 2.5 stories. Now, it's always a questionable one, when does 2.5 stories become 3 stories? But certainly from the front view, I would accept that that is 2.5 stories. And therefore, in that sense, it's compliant with that part of the neighbourhood plan where we say that we don't want buildings above 2.5 stories. However, the building is considerable bulk because of it being 2 such houses right next door to each other. And personally, I think it really leads to a development that looks cramped, but I'm willing to throw it open to the rest of the committee to say what you feel. So if anyone's got a point they'd like to make, let's start with, I'll start with Sue actually on this one, because it is something where Sue's knowledge of the neighbourhood plan and the really design statement will be useful. Sue, can I ask you to start with this one?
Right. Well, I tend to agree with most of the objections raised by the deputations that we have received. It looks to me like quite a significant overdevelopment of the site. I think there are considerable issues with parking. I can't remember, but I do remember when it was converted from the original sort of cafe that was there to the Madhuban, and they got permission for extension things. I'm pretty certain that there was parking required at the site for restaurant users, and I think that has disappeared over the years. But I think if they were to go back and look at the permission that was granted, there is parking required. And as proposed here, there's no parking at all for the visitors, people using the restaurant. It is an incredibly congested corner or a narrow road where parking is already an issue. So I think parking is really a major thing. On if they should be considering granting it, I think the design still is not quite right. If you look at that, what we're looking at now, the windows, the ones in the Madhuban have got, I don't know, sort of coping over the windows. There's some character there over the door and over the windows, which is completely lacking in the proposed building. So I think we should make some comment about the design not being up to scratch, but the major one is the overdevelopment, cramped parking issues.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I also really do not see how this undercroft parking is going to work, because essentially it's going to require incredibly good neighbourly relations, shall we say, because the neighbour, the house nearest Western Road, could quite easily block the parking to stop people in the inner house getting in and out. Which I think means, to my mind, the parking design is ill-conceived. Sheila?
I noticed that one of the documents said that 4 parking spaces would be needed just for the houses. And then, of course, the visitors to the restaurant have got nowhere to park either. I just wondered, are these houses going to be for sale, or are they for employees? Because the ground floor seemed to be given over to office, and there's an awful amount of storage space required. So I just wondered, what is the purpose of these?
I've got to say, I don't honestly know. My perception on looking at it was that they were intended to be for sale, but I don't know. But it's an interesting question. I've got to admit that has not occurred to me, but that's interesting talk, because I know the rooms above the Madhuban are used for staff accommodation. So yes, I don't know is the answer to that one, Sheila. Sorry.
Because they're going to be very narrow houses. But yeah, it was the parking mainly I picked up on the fact that you'd need at least 4 parking spaces. Well, there's just no room for any parking spaces.
No. And as I say, like, we do have to bear in mind, I think, the knock-on effect to people who are visiting the restaurant. Howard, any thoughts on this one?
Yes, I support what Sue and Sheila have said. With regard to the current car park, which is going to be built over, I personally have often seen 1 or more cars parked there. I think it's you can get 2 in, and that's quite common. Some years ago, we had contact with people in St Mary's Road complaining about how dangerous it was coming out of St Mary's Road, because the line of sight going up the hill was obscured by cars parked down in front of the restaurant, right to the corner. And we had conversations with the county council over this. At one stage, there was a proposal to actually build Western Road out into Station Road in order to make it narrower and safer for people to come out. I can't remember why that didn't happen. But what did happen was the county council agreed to put double yellow lines, and they cover the whole of the front of the Madaban and down to the corner. Now, even then, it's still not particularly a good sight line, but I think this will actually damage that sight line and make it more dangerous for cars to come out. So I think that's about what I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Howard. Claire?
I agree with everything that everyone has said, and the only thing I have to add is that even if neighbour relations are friendly, I can't see any way that people will be able to drive out of the Undercroft parking in a forward gear. So they'd have to reverse out onto what's already a kind of busy road with no sight lines.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. And Nick?
Again, agree with others. On the parking, I think one of the residents who's made a deputation suggested that it was very narrow as well as being tandem. And I think that would need to be looked at if they were minded to give permission. However, I agree with others that this is overdevelopment. I think that there's also the issue of the drainage report, where the expert has suggested the site is too confined and has said his or her comments need to be looked at carefully. I concluded, as Jill Peters did in her deputation, that there might conceivably be room for one house here, but certainly not for two.
Yeah, okay. So I think then, to sum up what everyone has said, I think we're going to say strong objection on primarily A, the grounds of overdevelopment, B, that we do not believe the parking suggested is actually going to be deliverable, and that if officers are minded to do it, they should satisfy themselves that 4 modern vehicles could actually park within that space, because I don't think they can. And also that we have concerns about the drainage as expressed by the drainage expert. And yeah, I think that should be our view on it. I think as well we should put the points which Sue mentioned about the design, and actually say that if it is minded to go ahead, we would see the design to be more sympathetic to the design plan and certainly to the Madaban next to it, to at least match the style of lintels and coving for the doors, to make it better blend into the street scene. But I'm hopeful that the officers will agree with us that it is overdevelopment, because I think it really is putting the court into a pint pot, as the saying goes. Okay, so that's the Madaban. So the other one we want to look at is the Oaks. The applicant had previously put in an application to do this under permitted development, just changing the use class of the building. They were then told that wasn't possible, so they've now submitted a full planning application, but in reality there's nothing different in the planning application to what was in the permitted development application. Howard?
I was trying to get in before you moved on. Could we also mention the sight lines coming out of Western Road?
Oh, on the Madaban, yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of grief on that some years ago.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, Lizzie, can we put something in on that? Okay, so as I say, the Oaks, really nothing's different from the application we looked at before. It is just a request to change the use from a residential nursing home to just a private residence. unless anyone's got anything they really want to put in on this one, I was going to assume that we didn't have any objection. Nick?
Well, I think we just ought to note that the owner has explained to us that the cottage that we were concerned about, the existing, I think it was manager's house, will be an ancillary building to the house.
Yeah.
And perhaps we ought to suggest that a condition of permission is that it isn't ever separated from the house and retained.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Is everyone happy with that? Anyone, anything else they want to add on this one? No. Okay, so we'll say no objection, but we will ask for the transition put in which Nick requested, which I think does make sense. Okay, so we now return to the order on the agenda. So the first one then is 37 Rushfield Road in Liss. It's quite a large extension because it's changed in that it's a single-story rear extension and also the loft conversion to include the front and rear dormer windows and the removal of the existing chimney. It does mean that there's an increase in bedrooms by 1 in the property if they do this, but I think equally it's worth noting that there are a good number of the properties in Rushfield Road which have already had this sort of alteration done to them. Certainly the dormers in the roof, and some have had additional extension. Who wants to go first on this one? I'll go to Claire first on this one.
I don't have any problem with it, except I have a question for my own education. Does converting attic space or loft space into living accommodation count towards the 30% increase in size, or is it already there?
Yes, it would in this instance, but the 30% won't apply because it's inside the. Oh no, 30% will apply because yes, sorry, I correct myself. So yes, that would apply. I think. Sue might have thought on that, but I think it would apply. Sue, can I jump to you on that one? You're on mute, Sue.
I don't think it does myself, but unless it's Jay, I thought it was on the footprint.
No, I think it's actual habitable area, isn't it?
Well, it might be right. Anyway, so don't ask me. Might have.
Okay. Well, we'll raise it as a query, Claire, but just to be sure.
Yeah, we might be onto a loser if lots of other people have done it, but if you include the loft space, it is more than a 30% increase to habitable space.
Well, the other people will have done it before the 30% policy came in anyway.
Is it mean to say no when everyone else has done the same thing though? Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, no, we'll raise that as a query, Ted, because it's a valid query. Sheila.
Well, I just jotted down, it's quite an undertaking, 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, plus dormer windows to front and rear. So my first thing was it is going to be much larger. It does say that it's in character to other properties in the road, but actually the front is going to be very different from next door.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
But if the neighbours haven't complained, perhaps they think that it's more independent to be different to next door. I don't know. But that was all I thought, that it is actually going to be
yeah
a lot extra.
Yeah. Okay. Nick, any thoughts on this one?
I had a look at it on Google Maps, and it seemed to me that it wasn't unreasonable in terms of the effect it would have on others. And although aesthetically it might be nice for the two houses to remain reasonably symmetrical, I can't see that as an objection. So apart from the size issue that Claire has raised, I can see no reason to be concerned.
Howard, anything?
No, I'm quite happy.
All right, we're going back to Sue. Sue?
I've just looked up the policy.
Yeah.
It says proposal does not increase the floor space of the existing dwelling.
Oh, so this will increase the floor space, won't it? Or does it? I don't know.
Put an extra floor in. I don't know. It's a good question to ask, but that's what the policy says.
Because it would set an interesting
It doesn't say habitable area. It says floor space.
It says floor space. Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely ask the question, I think, because it would be worth knowing for other applications as well. So, so can we say then, if I'm summing up the mood, I think we say no objection, subject to officers confirming that it's not exceeding the 30% extra floor space. And we'll wait and see what they come back with on that. Okay. So we move on to the next one then, which is a Wetham Farm, Wetham Lane, which is for a lawful development certificate for existing use or operation, a change of use of farm buildings to equestrian use, namely bullpens, 2 stables for DIY liveries, 1 tap room, loose calf boxes, 8 stables for DIY liveries, 1 tap room, 1 hay store, main stable block, 9 stables for DIY liveries, 3 tap rooms, wooden stables, 5 stables for DIY liveries, riding school, 20 metre by 40 metre indoor arena, sand and rubber based surface fully lit and enclosed by straw bale and boarding walls. I would suggest that probably the only, to my mind, the only significant thing there which is the riding school, 20 metres by 40 metres, which is a fair size, but that said, it's a very rural location. The riding school is going to be indoors, and so I think as long as we could be satisfied that there wasn't going to be light leakage from that building into the night sky, I don't know, what do others feel? I'll start with Sheila on this one. Sheila, any thoughts?
Well, it just seemed to me to be a sort of retrospective application for something that's been around for a long time, as if they're just sort of making it legal, as it were. And I didn't see anything wrong with it, because it didn't seem to me it was going to change enormously.
No, I think that's true. Nick, any thoughts?
I agree with Sheila.
Okay. Howard, any thoughts? Okay. Claire, any thoughts?
I have no problem with it, but again, because every day is a school day, what is the difference between farm buildings and equestrian use?
It is just a change of planning use. There's not really any difference other than that, I don't think.
Yeah,
So,
I'm just wondering why farm buildings and equestrian buildings would be different, why they would be classified differently in the first place.
I think it's particularly because these are DIY liveries. I guess the thing is it's likely to be more traffic.
Okay.
Could be because if you've got potentially you could have 17, 19, 20 different owners, each bids in the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Any thoughts on this one?
No, it's not going to make any difference. And if you drive past, you can't see any of it.
Right. Okay. So I think we go for no objection then on that one, because I can't see anyone having a problem. So we then come to 9A Vincent Road, Liss, a garden studio. Can we see the block plan, please, Lizzie? So the garden studio lies right at the end of the garden. The gardens in Brinton Road are quite long, and so it's not going to have any effect on any property because it's a long way away from the properties and there's nothing directly behind it, only a bit of green space. Very informal green space as well, comes to that. Can we see the elevations, Lizzie? So it's going to be cedar shingles, brickwork and lap boarding, and it is going to have a wood burner inside, and the guttering and a rain butt, water collection butt. Anybody any thoughts on this one? I'll start with. I'll start with Claire.
I again don't have any problem with it. It's quite big, but it doesn't look like it's unnecessarily big. It's far away from the houses that it isn't going to bother anyone, and there shouldn't be any night skies issues because there doesn't seem to be any roof lights.
Okay, yeah. Nick, any thoughts?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, Howard?
No, nothing to say.
Okay, Sheila?
I just wondered, is the applicant different from the owner because it seemed to be a different person on the, the application form? I mean, I don't suppose it makes much difference, but I was just curious.
To the best of my knowledge, it's still a housing association property. So the owner of the property is a housing association, whereas the tenant is presumably applying to build this in the rear garden.
That is correct to my knowledge.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. Sue, any thoughts?
Well, the purpose of the building, it says, is for stargazing. So I was expecting to see sort of roof lights, but it would appear not. There aren't any there. So
No.
Had there been, I would have been saying we needed to say something about the dark night skies policy. But perhaps you just sit outside and go inside to keep warm or something.
Presumably, yeah.
But,
okay, so I think that in which case we say no objection. I think we would want the standard condition on it that it remains ancillary to the main dwelling. And other than that, I can't see any real issue with that. Okay, so we're going to move on to 13 Berrylands, a 2-story extension to the side and covered porch. Following demolition of the single-story side utility room. Now, this is quite a substantial extension, it has to be said. However, the building is right at the end of this property, is right at the end of Berryland, so it's not going to have any impact on any neighbours, which is actually the end furthest away from the existing properties that's being extended. So where should I start this time? I'm going to start with Nick this time. Nick, any thoughts on this one?
I'm afraid I'm not being very interventionist in this meeting so far, but I didn't really see any problem with it. As you say, size matters, so we better get them to check that. But I thought it looked okay. It doesn't look unreasonable in terms of design. So I have no objection personally.
Okay, thank you. Howard, any thoughts?
No. Well, one possible thing, you mentioned that it's at the end, so it won't interfere with neighbours. Might it become a precedent for somebody else to get similar, where it might affect the neighbours?
I think a lot of the houses in Berryland have already been extended. So,
Yeah,
you know, I think probably if it was the first in the road, I'd be tempted to agree with you. But I think given the number of other houses that have been extended, I'm personally, I'm not concerned about it being a precedent. Sheila.
Well, I just wrote down what everybody said, that it's at the end of the road, so it won't affect anyone else.
Sue, any thoughts on this one?
I think there is an impact on it being at the end of the road in that it is on the turning head. And where there's a turning head and there are all the drives there, actual capacity for on-street parking is virtually nil. And so I'm not convinced that there's nothing shown about where the parking is going to be, and there is quite a sizable extra bedroom here. So I think if they really need to be able to show that there's on-site parking.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure there is, because it's quite a tight frontage there.
Okay.
So that's my only concern. I think we need some reassurance about that, because that would impact on the neighbours.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's a very useful observation. Thanks, Sue. And Claire.
I had the same parking concern as Sue. Other than that, it looks like it's okay as long as people can park.
Okay, so I think then we'll say, if I'm reading the mid, I think we say no objection, subject to officers confirming that sufficient parking is available within the curtilage of the property, and that it is practical for that parking to be used. Okay, so we move on then to Crouch Regents, Rate Road, Liss. This is for a lawful development certificate proposed for a swimming pool to the rear. There have been some discussions about this swimming pool.
We're talking about, Keith. We were talking about a different swimming pool, unless.
Oh, we were. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused myself now. It's been a long day. You know, it scratched that last comment about there have been some discussions. That was a different property. Sorry, I was getting myself confused. So this particular property, it sits on the corner of St Patrick's of Rate Road there. It's got a large garden in the property. The swimming pool is a fair size, but it's not, to my mind, out of keeping with the space of the property. So any thoughts? I'll start with Howard this time. Any thoughts, Howard?
no, I think it's fine. It might be that they decide sometime in the future they'd like it to be an indoor rather than outdoor pool. I don't know whether that would, I suppose that would be considered at the time, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've no problem with it as it is.
Okay. Claire, any thoughts?
Is that the house with next giant extension that's currently being built? I think it is, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with the pool. Good for them for the one day you can use it.
Lou, any thoughts on this one?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Nick, any thoughts?
No, I think it looks fine to me. Thanks.
Okay, and Sheila, any thoughts on this one?
Well, I think it's fine. One of the documents said that no planning permission was required anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, they're seeking confirmation that it can be done under lawful development. So I think, okay, we're going to say no objection on that one. That's fine. So we then move to Heather Bray, St Patrick's Lane, where they're seeking they've got planning permission, but they're seeking a variation. And the variation is they want to allow the replacement of the block paving for the entrance with granite set row for initial grip next to the road, and then permeable tarmac in place of block paving. plus in place of natural stone retaining wall, they want to use oak sleepers. Anyone who wants to go first on this one? I will go to Sue first on this one, I think. Sue, any thoughts?
I didn't really have any issues with this one. It's a very awkward spot to be coming in and out of, and you know, if they can make it safer for themselves, fair enough.
Okay, yeah. Claire, any thoughts?
I stood outside this and looked at it for a good 10 minutes on Monday. The terraces that they want to use the oak sleepers to hold back the retaining wall are about as tall as me. And I wonder if wood is a lot more biodegradable than stone. Other than that, I prefer wood. I think it'll look nicer.
Yeah.
It's a very, very small site though.
Okay. Nick, any thoughts?
No, nothing from me, thanks.
Okay, Howard?
I haven't seen any reason to object.
Okay. Sheila, any thoughts?
No, I haven't seen the actual place, and I didn't fully understand what it was they wanted. But if Claire says it'll look nicer, then I'll go with that quite happily.
I mean, I don't know, I don't have an issue with it per se, but my only concern, which I couldn't see how this was looking to solve, was, unless I'm mistaken, and I mean, I've not, I'll be honest, I'm only going for photographs. I've not been able to have a look at the site personally. I'm just a little concerned about drainage, because I don't see where the water that comes down that drive is going to go to, other than out into the road.
It's going to go straight into St. Patrick's Lane.
Yeah, that was my thought, and I thought normally that was not allowed these days for drainage from a development to go into the highway. I don't see that as being a reason enough for us to object to it, but I think it's something we should ask the officers to consider, because it's the one thing that struck me. I thought, where's the water going to go that falls on that tarmac? So if people are happy, I think we're saying no objection.
They say it's permeable tarmac instead of block paving, so that might be better than the block paving would have been.
Oh, that's true, I guess. Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Okay. I think I would, yeah, so we'll say no objection. But if we can just make a comment about the drainage, and then if hopefully the officers will ensure that that is covered. Okay, so the next one then is 71B, Station Road, a site not unfamiliar to many of us on the planning committee, which is a change of use of the part of the ground floor from general storage to retail shop with associated storage, new shop window and fascia signs. I have to say, it's almost a shame that this meeting is going out on YouTube and therefore will be there for posterity. Otherwise, I might say something which would express one feeling I have about this. But anyway, my personal feel is that my concern is, I should say, is about customers accessing this retail space, although I guess it's possible to argue that they would access it by foot from Station Road. But the bigger issue to me is deliveries to the shop, because there is no parking outside of that premises, because whatever space there is taken up either by residents' cars or by vehicles belonging to Alpha Graphics, who occupy the block to the top of the plan as we're looking at it. I think personally, that's my main concern with it. But I'm going to try open to others. Howard, what do you think on this?
Well, in regard to Alpha Graphics, the 2 garage spaces that should have been 3 is irrelevant, because I mean, I haven't done a formal survey on this, but I've made a note every time I pass, and there's always an Alpha Graphics van that blocks the 2 entrances to the 2 car parks anyway. So they are completely non-existent in practical terms. And we were talking about having a 3rd parking space there, and I can't remember where we got to on that. But that's where they're going to put their shop.
Yeah. If you remember, the reason it changed was because they said there were engineering reasons why they couldn't make all of that space an open and unsupported. I can't go to words that an unsupported span, which is why you've now got the horizontal walls. The if you like, as we're looking at the drawing, the left to right walls going across from the shop is to support the floor above. So it has created this closed-in space, but you know, we were when this first came to us and we were asked to consider this, we were told that that would be used as storage space for the properties above. It now appears that actually none of that space is going to be available for storage to the flats above, because part of it is going to be retail store space and the part next to it is going to be retail storage. What perhaps this does reveal to us, though, is what many of us suspected, I think, back at the time. It now explains why there's a WC at the back of the storage. Because that's obviously therefore the workers in the shop. Sue, what any thoughts on that?
Well, I made similar noises to those that you might have made when I saw it. And I particularly despair at the lack of understanding of the area from the traffic officer.
Yeah,
who says that it's fine. It just is not fine.
No.
The parking, every time you go by, that whole area in the front is full and with all sorts of signs saying don't park here and don't park here, but in fact everybody is parking there. It's right next to the station where traffic is frequently backed up, and it couldn't be a worse place. And I don't understand the traffic management response. It just made me despair.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Those 2 parking spaces that it shows there inside that building, which we always said was hopeless, every time I go by, I think there is no way that 2 vehicles can ever get in there. I know that's not particularly relevant to this application, but the whole area is over congested with traffic and parking in a whole area that's congested, and it shouldn't be allowed. But if the traffic management people say it's fine, we probably haven't got a leg to stand on.
No, I suspect not. Although I think you probably won't be surprised to learn that I am. If the officers are minded to give this permission, then I am equally minded as a member of East Hants Planning Committee to request that it comes to the committee, because I actually feel that it's a precedent that it's setting.
Can you insist on going on a site visit?
We're not doing site visits at the moment, but we are doing virtual site visits, so that can certainly be done. And yeah, I can request that. There's no problem with that. Claire, any thoughts on this?
Can we object on the basis that there isn't any real need for additional retail space in that part of the village at the moment, given the amount of units that are actually empty?
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, I think we should certainly include that.
And was there something about this particular building that the reason the ground floor was not habitable space is something to do with flooding?
Yeah.
So wouldn't that the same be true of retail space?
Yeah,
although there's 2 places next door.
Slightly different rules apply to retail space, but yes, I think again it's something we should we should mention.
But this particular bit is slightly higher, isn't it? It's raised at the
It
front.
is raised, yeah.
And
Sheila.
also the same noises you were making.
I was going to say the next door to that building, as you look at it on the screen, off the screen to the bottom,
Yeah,
was a shop, and if you look at it, you can still see it was a shop front.
yes,
That was converted to housing quite a few years back now.
yeah. It used to be. I'm don't know nostalgia here now. How it used to be a very nice bookshop, actually. Sheila, any thoughts?
Well, I was rather cynical. The first thing I jotted down was they're determined to use that space somehow or other. And then the next thing was exactly what Sue said. I couldn't believe that the traffic management had said, go ahead, nothing, no problem, because there obviously is a problem there. It's a very congested area anyway. So, but again, if the powers that be have said, oh yes, okay, it can go ahead, we probably can't object on those terms.
Okay, yeah. So I think then we're going to say, I think. Oh, Nick, sorry.
So on this occasion, I would like to speak.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. I didn't miss you out deliberately. I just suddenly thought, oh, I didn't ask Nick. Nick.
No, I was just thinking about Sheila's last comment. I've been cogitating this issue about parking. I mean, I think on those grounds, particularly, we should strongly object. And I'm just wondering how we could get the highways experts to reconsider their judgment. I sort of hanker after saying that once COVID restrictions are relaxed, we should park a large delivery vehicle on the road for a period of time and actually look at what happens to the traffic. Because as I think Sue has said, if people are waiting to cross the railway line, they've been stopped by the level crossing. I mean, it would just completely block the whole road, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And I just wonder, I don't have any experience of how we can influence things to that extent, but that's
as I said, my personal thinking on this is that it should officers be minded to give it permission, and then as district councillor, I will make representations that it comes to East Hants Planning Committee to be considered rather than an officer decision. Because I just think that I'm incredibly frustrated at basically what I think. Well, I've got to say personally, I'd love to be able to get traffic management in front of the committee to explain how they came to their conclusion. Sheila.
Well, I was just going to say, could we use that point and say it's a shop, shops need deliveries, deliveries come in lorries or vans, and no lorry or van can park that close to a level crossing.
Yes, because either way, I mean, even if that space which is marked outside the front of it was clear, which we know it never is, but if it was, then you're still stuck with a position that a lorry has either got to reverse onto the site very close to the level crossing, or has actually got to reverse off the site. Howard?
Yes, I was thinking of the van part. As somebody who uses that crossing a lot, both walking and driving, if the gate is down, and sometimes it can be down for quite a while. I remember having to queue whilst 5 trains went by once. What happens is the traffic going towards the village centre crosses the first few vehicles, but then they get stuck by the cars parked outside Jade News and the shops along there. So they have to wait for the traffic going out of the village to clear so that they can go to the right-hand side of the road and get past. Now, if you have a blockage on the other side, you've got what I think is called the deadly embrace, whereby the stuff going into the village can't move and the stuff going out to the village can't move until the stuff going in the village can move. So that could cause a real problem, I think.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a very valid point, actually. So I think then we're going to say strong objection on the grounds of traffic, that we do not accept there's anywhere suitable there for delivery vehicles to the shop to park, because access to the site is dangerous, and if they don't access the site, then they have to park on Station Road, which means, as Howard correctly said, it will potentially cause a total logjam where nothing will be able to move in either direction. And that's particularly dangerous in this location, of course, because of its proximity to the level crossing, because the ultimate danger there is you could end up with a vehicle stranded on the crossing, which doesn't bear thinking about. So I think we raise objections on that ground. I think we also take into what was said, and I think it's a very valid point, of we at the moment are not satisfied that there's an unsatisfied need for additional retail space within that side of that part of the village centre, given the number of empty shops that already are in Station Road. Is that fine?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So we then have 11 Hawksmead, Liss, which is a single-storey rear extension. I have to say, I think the architect on this plan deserves a prize for fitting the maximum number of possible drawings onto one sheet of A3 paper. But it's a very straightforward extension. Because of where it is on the corner plot, it's not actually going to have an effect on any neighbouring properties. There's no increase in the number of bedrooms, and therefore there's no increase in the parking requirement. Anybody got anything they want to say on this one? If you have, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that we have no objection. Chair.
Can we make the usual provision for dark night skies for the roof lights?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I think it's a bit of a shame to lose that much of the outside space for what's not a big garden. But I know that's not a reason to reject it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But as you say, that's not a planning consideration. Okay, so we're happy with no objection on that one. And so we then move on to 36 Rushfield Road, which is a lawful development certificate proposed for a single-storey extension to the side. I mean, it's a very modest extension. And it's seeking a lawful development certificate, which really means it essentially becomes a legal issue. But I personally couldn't see anything to object to on this. But again, if anyone's got anything, raise a hand. Otherwise, I'm going to assume we have no objection. Okay, so no objection. Thank you. So that is all the applications. Josh, we had a few tonight, didn't we, Nick?
So just before we move on from this agenda item, one of the residents of St Mary's Road referred in her deputation to a telephone mast, and maybe I can't see it on the agenda, but it's interesting.
It's under the appeals, Nick. It's
right.
item 9.
Sorry, apologies. Thank you.
That's okay, no problem. So we move on to the applications approved, which we have Eastfield Cottage, which was a fairly small change anyway. 18 Riverside Close, which is, you may remember, we spent quite some time debating about the development there, but that's been given approval. Forest House, again, the change to using the garage building whilst the other building was being built. Wild Green Cottages, 96 Station Road, converted from offices to a single dwelling. And the Oaks installation of a wooden pole and overhead conductors. No applications refused since the last meeting. We do have 2 appeals though. One is, as Nick mentioned, the telecoms pole in Station Road, which you may remember we had quite some issues with when it came before us because of the height of the pole. But the applicants have appealed, as is their right. I mean, to my mind, I think our original objections remain unless anybody's got anything that they want to change. It's a written appeals only, so what we've already said will have already gone to the appeal inspector. So unless there's anything substantial we want to say differently, then I think we just stick with our original objection.
I'm inclined to, on both of these, to actually write in support of the planning officer's decision.
Okay.
I think particularly on the next one, it's a very full report, but I think on this one as well, it doesn't hurt.
No.
That you back up, strongly support the officer's decision.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that as chair planning. Is everyone happy with that? That we write supporting the original decision?
Yeah, it sounds good, that.
Okay.
Can I also say I've had a few parishioners email me about this, and actually if you look at the original objections, there weren't a huge number, and they've been saying, oh, you know, are you going to put it on social media? Are you going to put it on the Liss Parish Council social media? And I think there is interest. Is in the parishioners' interest, because this is the middle of the village. Is that something that councillors would be interested in me doing?
I think, to be honest, because of the way the appeal system works, it's probably limited value because the appeal will be against the decision as originally made, and whilst the inspector would take into account anything that strengthens an argument, like for instance, as Sue suggested, us supporting the planning officer's decision, they won't take into account any new evidence because that was not there at the time of the original decision.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think I can understand what people want to do, but I think actually it's a very limited value to do that because the inspector will just disregard it.
Fair enough.
But certainly on both of those, I'm quite happy for us to write a letter supporting the planning officer's decision. Okay, so there have been no appeal decisions. There have been no applications withdrawn. We do have a couple of TPOs, which have been referred to the tree warden at Freerton, Melbourne Road.
Keith, you did send through to me an appeal decision on the cabin in Hawkley Road. And I don't know why we haven't got that.
Oh, that's a good point.
And I raised the question because you sent it through to me. But the question I asked was because the application, it was in 2016. The decision was in 2018, and the appeal decision has only just now come through, and we have not been formally informed about it. So I think there are questions to be asked about why.
Yeah.
A, it took so long, and B, why we were not kept informed throughout.
Yes, no, that's a very
It's a good decision. It's a very good.
it is a good decision. Yes, yeah.
And can I ask what appeal this is? Because it's not one that came up in my searches.
It's appeal number. We've got. Am I? Appeal number app /Y9507 /X/19 /3234115.
Right. Maybe you could email that to me.
And the National Park reference number of the application was 16/06034.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
It seems an extraordinary process that we passed us by. You got to Keith somehow.
Yeah, no, I agree, Sue. So yeah, I will undertake. If you make a note of this, I will undertake to follow that up and try and track down why that took so long. Okay, so we have the TPOs for Prison, Melbourne Road, Wood Close, Hillbrow Road, and 1 Summerfield Terrace. And we've got a TPO application approved for Bowworth House in London Road in Hillbrow. TPO was made none. Neighbourhood development plan update. I don't really have any update on it at the moment. We had a discussion with Chris Patterson, and we're just waiting now to move forward on that. The update on the Charlie development on Andrews Road, as you will have seen, the development continues to proceed apace. I did notice that the road at the far end from the village of the development, when I went past it this afternoon, that road appears to be almost finished in terms of the houses there. So that presumably that will then now move on, working back towards the village. And in relation to that, of course, we also have the Sang, which is, as I say, has now had some work done on it, and by all accounts is now open to the public.
Do we know that it's been formally approved?
It has been formally approved, yeah.
It has, yes, because what we saw was what the proposal.
Yes, no, it has, yeah, we checked that, and it has been formally approved. We then have the, oh, sorry, Nick.
Before you move on, as you know, I wanted to raise something to do with the Sang under AOB, but thinking about that thing just made me look at the management plan that they produced and made me think, do we as a parish council, do we have a sort of a duty, a moral duty, to take an interest in what they're actually doing, in that it is going to be a substantial community asset, and I don't recall us ever inviting them to come and tell us what they're planning to do, talk it through with us. Am I wrong? Did we ever, have we ever had that sort of dialogue?
I'm not sure. I need to ask Sue on that. Sue, have we? You're on mute, Sue.
I have a feeling we did, that they came and explained what they were going to put forward. And we then had quite considerable discussions on each of those meetings when Paddy and, I forget, Brian Mayo turned up several times. We had quite lengthy discussions about it.
I definitely remember the Paddy Brian Mayo experiences. What I'm thinking is, now that they're getting down to actually doing things, like sort of laying new hedgerows and so on, whether from time to time we should invite them to come and report progress and enable us to comment, and not, obviously we can't insist on things, but take an interest. That was all I was wanting to raise.
Yeah, I certainly don't see any. I certainly don't see any harm in that. I'm quite happy to, I've got some good contacts now at Carter, so I'm quite happy to discuss that with them and suggest that they might want to come and present to us, and give us an update on where they're at. I don't see any problem with that.
because the meetings are public, it would be a way in which people, should they care to tune in, could hear that or see it later when they get round to looking at it on YouTube.
No, yeah, I think it's a good point. You know, because it certainly struck me in all the discussions that I've had with Carla in the last 6 months or so that they have every intention of being a good neighbour. So I think that would actually be a good opportunity for them to show what they've done and what they're planning to do. So yeah, I'm quite happy to follow that up next and see what we can do. As you say, we can't make them come along and present to us, but it would be good if they did. Okay, so then the Rodgate and Rake Neighbourhood Development Plan update. Hopefully you will have seen that the papers come back from the person who carried out the inspection on the plan, which is all positive, and he's recommending that, subject to his recommendations for some slight changes being adopted, that the next stage for that is for it to go to referendum in Rake, which in Rodgate and Rake, of course, and then that's subject to that achieving a majority in the referendum, then that it should then be adopted as a made plan by the National Park. I think the main thing to say from Liss's perspective is that he was very strict on making them remove items that were within Liss from the particularly the public facilities, and I think also that he has instructed them to revise the proposal by the Flying Bull so that the whole of the development that's proposed is within the parish of Rake and doesn't straddle over the border into the parish of Liss, which means a reduction of the properties there from 4 to 2. But it doesn't affect the plan overall because there's actually spare capacity in what is currently the Rodgate garage site in Rodgate. And so I think it was a very, well, I think first of all, I think it would be quite right of us to offer our thanks to him for the investigation, you know, for the examination he's carried out. And I think also to extend congratulations to Rodgate Parish Council for them getting their neighbourhood plan to the stage where it's ready to go to referendum.
Can I make just one comment?
Yes, please do, Sue.
When we commented on it, we flagged up the fact that they had a policy H2, which listed exceptional reasons which could enable additional development to take place outside their settlement policy boundary. And there were 5 categories there. If you remember, the one place that we were concerned about in their earlier iterations of the plan was what might happen at Clayton Court.
Yes.
And the policy, these reasons why they could exceptionally develop, Clayton Court could come forward under more than one of those possible exceptions. And I just think it's something that we need to watch because he was happy with policy H2. And I think just for us to note that it could happen still. Yeah.
I think that's a valid point. Yeah, I'm happy for us to note that, and it's something we need to bear in mind as a committee should that come forward at some point in the future. Okay, so we then come to any other business. So I'll quick go around. I'll start with Nick because I know Nick has something he does want to raise.
Yeah, what I wanted to raise, thank you, Chair, is just about tree planting and how it relates to the SANG. Some of you will already know there's been an upsurge of interest amongst some residents to do some tree planting, and I think that a small group might be forming at this moment to offer to do some tree planting within the village. this would be in addition to what we're planning to do in Mill Road and what we might do in the longer term in the village centre in a modest way in terms of number of trees. As I've suddenly learned, a plan to do something, plant 30 trees at the junior school. But I suppose what it made me think was what is the parish doing in furtherance of the district council's commitment to get 120,000 trees planted. And I am quite clear that we haven't got the resource to become a tree planting leadership organisation, but I am thinking, what can we do to help others if they are wanting to do something? And so the issue for this meeting was simply, in terms of the SANG, there are commitments to plant a substantial amount of additional hedgerow, and there are commitments to remove dead limbs from existing trees, but there was nothing in there about tree planting, which might be seen as a bit of a missed opportunity. I just wondered what colleagues would think about that.
Okay, anyone got any thoughts on that? Claire, any thoughts on tree planting?
I think we should actively encourage tree planting because it's good for the environment. On the SANG, I think while we can encourage local groups to get involved, I don't know if it's really our place to do anything about it because it's not our land. And there is a management plan in place that has been quite tightly negotiated. So I don't know if adding and taking away from that is necessarily the best idea. But absolutely, we should plant more trees. just maybe not on the SANG.
Yeah, I mean, I as I pointed out to Nick earlier, on the SANG, we have to be, in a sense, in some ways, we have our hands tied because, as you say, although it's land over which the public have access, it's not parish council land, and certainly for the first few years after the development's completed, it's solely under the remit of Carla and Hilliers as to what they do, and of course that largely has to be in accordance with the agreed plan which has been approved. So that's not to say that there couldn't be opportunities for more trees there, because I think there possibly could, but I think that's something which, other than maybe providing a conduit between the residents who wish to plant trees and Carla's, there's probably little else for us to do there. I think ultimately if Carla said no, then it's quite within their right to do so. Howard, any thoughts on that?
No, I don't think I've got anything to add, to be honest.
Sheila, any thoughts?
No, I don't think I've got anything to add either.
Okay, Sue? No. Okay, so I think we note that, Nick, and just see what we can do.
Well, just to respond to you, Chair, I mean, it was as a conduit that I was thinking of offering ourselves and nothing more. It's helpful to know that your relationship with them means that if this group does get together and so it's capable of doing something, then we could at least promote a dialogue.
Yeah.
I did note in the management plan that they intend to work with the rangers and volunteers, as they described them. So I think they're open to talking to volunteer groups. So they may not think it fits with the their strategy for the SANG, but we can at least introduce that thought to them.
Yeah. I think that's good. Okay. Claire, any other business? No. Sue? No. Howard? No. Sheila? No, I don't have any other business. So at 8:51. I